Hey, what is up guys? So we are going to be doing a deck profile on agents. This build is actually very similar to Simon He's build. It's actually a few cards different, taken from a lot of other top deck lists from actually YCS's. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, and we'll kind of explain some of the simple combos and explanations as we go along. Because now that Earth is at 3, I don't really know why this card was at 2, but now that this card is at 3, a lot of players are looking to jump into agents. Pretty easy deck to play, especially since also one of the most expensive or hard to get card is actually getting a reprint is Black Soldier, because pretty much you just need to be getting 3 structure decks and throw in about 5 or 6 cards and you will be ready to go. Now if you don't have some of these cards, or if you just don't like some of these cards, I have some cards over here in the side area that you can opt to play instead. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So first off, we have 3 mystical shine balls. They're basically used to either make Dark Mist, a Gachi Gachi, which is pretty much the card you're going to go for most of the time, or you're going to be getting out Herald of Pure Light, which is actually a newer card. And you get them out by using Venus's effect, which we will get into a little bit later. Next up, we have 1 Artsword Chrysia. This card absolutely dominates the game. If this card gets successfully special summoned, your opponent really doesn't have an answer, within a few turns you usually win the duel. Now the only downside to Chrysia, it can be kind of a dead draw early on in the game if you don't happen to have the right cards to special summon her. Next up, we have 1 Black Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. Fantastic card in Chaos Agents. Next up, we have 1 Chaos Sorcerer. You can also actually play Arcanite Magician in this deck if you wanted to, because Chaos Sorcerer plus an Effect Veiler makes a Arcanite Magician. Next up, we have 2 Effect Veiler, 1 Gorse, 1 Herald of Orange Light. This card is basically used to get rid of Shine Balls once they're dead, or Venuses once they're dead, or Earths once they're dead, because sometimes late game you will kind of have dead cards in this deck. Like I said, Venus, Earth, and Shine Ball are pretty much all dead cards later on in the game if you've already went through your combo with Venus to get out the other 2 Shine Ball, or whatever you did to accidentally draw them. You can definitely have access to just get rid of one of them and not really go minus with Herald of Orange Light, because it technically is a -1. Next up, we have Honest, one of the best cards in any light deck. Next up, 3 Master Hyperion. This is your boss monster. Don't be afraid to drop some of these early on. You can just win games simply by just having so much food for Hyperion early on in the game. Remember, when you're banishing cards, try to banish your Mystical Shine Balls for Hyperion's effect. He's kind of like a mini Dark Arm Dragon, but he's really easy to special summon. Remember, always banish your, you have to banish your agent to special summon him, but when you're banishing cards, if you happen to have Shine Balls, banish the Shine Balls, because that might hurt you later on when you want to get out another Hyperion. You just won't have those agents. So remember, banishing the Mystical Shine Balls is the better idea. Next up, 2 Max C. This is just a pretty standard 2 Max C, 2 Veiler. Very consistent build. Next up, 1 Spirit Reaper, just to add to the Dark Monster, because, Sangan is gone, plus Spirit Reaper is a pretty good card in a slower format. Next up, 3 Agent of Creation Venus. Basically, you want to open up with Venus or Earth first turn. That essentially is what you want to go for, and you want to get out your Shine Balls usually as quickly as possible, unless you know you're playing against a certain deck and you maybe want to slow roll for a huge combo later on with maybe like a Mind Control, and then you can start abusing things like Enemy Controller and things like that in the deck. But generally, yeah, you want to get out Venus and get out Gachi Gachi as quickly as possible. Next up, 1 Thunder King, because it's at 1, and it's just still a great first turn card. Even though this deck doesn't actually play lots of back row, Thunder King basically protects himself. Next up, 2 Tour Guides, just more Dark Monster, plus getting a Olivia back, and maybe getting back an Honest sometimes can definitely change games. Next up, 2 Trigodias, just a fantastic, card if you're just playing some type of monster mash. Next up, random tech creature swap. It's always awesome to give them a Shine Ball and then take their good monster. Next up, Dark Hole, 2 Enemy Control. It works fantastic with Mystical Shine Ball. There's so many times, if you have a lot of practice with this deck, you can OTK really easy in this deck if you happen to have multiple Hyperion, or if you happen to have a Venus, you can get all those Shine Balls out. Maybe Enemy Controller. Maybe if they have 2 monsters, like they pushed really hard and you drop Trigodia or something like that, and if you can get a Venus and maybe get out multiple Shine Balls, just tribute the Shine Balls and then take their monsters and just finish them off for game. Next up, 2 Lances, because Bottomless hurts in this deck, especially early on. If your Venus gets bottomless and you don't have access to a Venus or an Earth to search out another Venus, it really hurts, because not only do you not get your Venus's effect to special summon the Shine Balls, but it also gets banished, so you can't banish it later on for Hyperion. Next up, 1 Mind Control, because there's a significant amount of tuners in this deck, plus Trigodia can alter its level, and there's Earth is a tuner, you have Veiler that is a tuner as well, and also Herald of Orange Light is a tuner, so lots of tuners in here, and I think this card is pretty good. Next up, to deal with back row, you gotta run triple MST because no heavy storm means a lot of players will generally tend to run more back row. Next up for the traps, I decided to go with basically the trapless build, which is just the treacherous trap hole build, but also I wanted to fit in one breakthrough skill, and the reason why is because if you guys have ever played agents and you get matched up against a evil swarm player and they get out Ophion, it really hurts. Sometimes there's very few things that you can do, and since Ophion has the ability to basically protect himself once for free, you'll be able to activate breakthrough skill, let them activate the infestation pandemic, and then later on during your turn you can just break through skill and then go on from there. Some other great cards in this deck, you're gonna have to change up your build a little bit depending if you want to play some of these cards. Card Trooper is actually pretty good. If you're gonna play Card Trooper, I do recommend you to play 2 Christia and maybe like Call of the Haunted, maybe take out the Treacherous Trap Hole, simply because Card Trooper is good to just start milling cards. It makes the deck a lot faster, although sometimes you can milk certain cards that you actually don't want to mill. Another thing I wanted to mention, before someone says, why are you playing more than one trap when you're playing Treacherous Trap Hole? The thing with Breakthrough Skill is it gets banished, so you don't have to worry about it being in the graveyard, so you can still activate your Treacherous Trap Hole. But Darkharm Dragon is also an okay card in this deck, although you basically have 3 Darkharm Dragons anyways. But the thing with Darkharm Dragon is, if Sangan was a legal card, I probably would, recommend you guys to play it. But sometimes it's kind of difficult to get 3 darks, especially when you're banishing them, with like Chaos Sorcerer or Blackluster Soldier. But yeah, I mean, Tour Guide into Tour Guide basically is 2, and then you just need to drop like 1 more dark, and then I guess you could make Darkharm viable. But yeah, Sangan definitely helped out because Sangan searched out a Tour Guide, and then from there it was just so much easier. Next up, Gen X Ally Birdman. If you practice a lot with this deck, this card is fantastic. I definitely recommend you guys to at least try it out one day, especially with the enemy controllers, especially with the Shine Balls. And you can always bounce back the Shine Ball to your hand and special summon the Shine Ball once again with Venus to get it out. And basically, it's just a free special summon by paying 500 more life points, and you can get out some really dirty plays like a Gachi and a Zen Mains, or there's so many other combinations that you can do. A lot of times you can push for a game with Birdman plus enemy controller and Venuses, depending on what the field looks like. Next up, I just want to mention Night Assailant is another Tour Guide target, but I kind of like this card because it gets rid of Ophion, and Ophion really hurts if you play this deck. You'll realize it really fast. Next up, Raikou is just another card to get rid of Ophion, plus it kind of speeds up the deck. Depending on your build, like I said, if you want to play like Card Trooper, Raikous, I do recommend you to play multiple Christia and Call of the Haunted because getting out Christia basically wins games. Next up, Transmodify. Now this won't make it a budget deck because this is kind of a budget deck. I mean, you're just going to have to wait for the reprint of BLS, and if you don't have some of these cards, you can always run some of these other ones below. But yeah, Transmodify is a pretty darn good card in this deck because if you summon Earth, you can add the Venus, then you can immediately tribute the Earth and go straight for a Venus and then get out your Shine Balls, or you can summon a Shine Ball and go for it. There's so many other things that you can do with Transmodify. It opens up plays, basically. It's awesome in that aspect. Next up, I did want to mention XYZ Encore because it kills Ophion. Like I said, there's a lot of hate for Ophion because that card hurts this deck a lot. Next up, Royal Decree. If you want to definitely take out the Treacherous Trap Hole, maybe Breakthrough Skill, you can definitely just throw in Decree, and then you don't have to worry about all the background. Maybe you can drop 1 MST if you would like to. Next up, I do want to mention some of these other cards that you can run in your extra deck. I just simply couldn't fit them all in the little extra deck that only allows us to show 15 down below. But you can definitely run more than 1 Gachi as well. Also, I wanted to mention, like I said, Arcanite Magician. You can definitely make use of that in the right situation. It can definitely make the difference between winning and losing a game. But generally, I would say this is the most standard extra deck over here. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So, Catastor, do not drop Armory Arm. I promise you guys, this card will save you games so many times. There's so many times where you have a Shine Ball, and then next turn you can summon an Earth and get out another Surge. And then Armory Arm is just so good in this deck. Next up, Black Rose Dragon, Crimson Blader, Gaia, the Force of the Earth. There's a lot of times where you can go for a level 6 Synchro Monster, so either Gaia, Force of the Earth, which is great because it gets over Ophion. I know, I'm mentioning a lot of cards to get over Ophion. Of course you have to use Breakthrough Skill first, to be able to Synchro for him. Next up, Mistworm. This card actually comes out really easy in this deck. And then just, the standard Stardust Dragon is always just good to have, but I actually like to put Scrap Dragon instead of Stardust, but depending on your preference or what cards you actually have, use that to your advantage. Next up, Gachi. You have to play at least 1, but you can definitely play 2, and it's definitely not bad. This is the new card, Herald of Pure Light. Recycling really good cards like this is pretty awesome, or this, or this. Basically, it just recycles a card, and it doesn't really go plus, it just lets you cycle 1 card, which is really good. you just detach one material, and then you target one monster in your graveyard, and you add it to your hand, then you shuffle one card from your deck into your hand. So, like I said, it's not a plus, but it lets you cycle, you know, your really, really good cards. Next up, this card isn't really necessary, but I just thought I'd mention it. Sometimes if you can drop 2 Hyperions, sometimes if they have like a face down, I don't know, if you happen to have Hyperion you can't banish, I know sometimes it happens. Maybe they've got a face down monster and you pop the back row, and you know it's a face down Spirit Reaper or something like that, and you can't you know, attack over it. You can make this and then tribute something and then get rid of it. Next up, Olivia. This card is very important. Do not drop this card. It's one of the most important cards in the extra deck for this deck. Then Olivia, then number 96, Dark Mist. If you don't have this card, you definitely don't need to play this card. It's just, you know, it's nice to have an option. This card is very good if you can get it out against Ophion. Like I'm mentioning so many times, all the hate for Ophion, but yeah, this deck definitely does have a hard time against that deck. And then just to round off the XYZs, wind up Zen main. So that's going to be it for the deck profile for Agents, but if you guys have any suggestions for this deck, let me know in the comment section below. It's been a long time since I actually played this deck. This deck was actually one of my favorite decks. I actually made a deck called Breaker Agents, which actually got quite popular for a while, but I would say for you guys that it's really easy to play, it's easy to learn, but there are times where you can OTK in this deck really easy, and you're going to have a lot of practice and experience with it. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Asian Eyes signing out.